If you had told me that one sentence would flip my whole life upside down, I would have laughed. I was a 31-year-old single dad who fixed heating and air units for a living. My name is Ryan Cole. I believed in two things: keep the bills paid, keep my 7-year-old son, Noah, safe and happy. That was it. No big dreams, no crazy risks, no more heartbreak. I thought I had my world under control until the night my neighbor knocked on my door with rain in her hair and a blanket in her arms and said she wanted a baby. And not just any baby, she wanted mine. I live in Spokane, Washington, on a quiet street where people mow their lawns on Saturdays and pretend their lives are normal. My house is a small 2-bedroom place with peeling paint and a fence that needs work, but it's ours. I bought it 3 years ago after my marriage ended. The first time I held the keys in my hand, Noah on my hip, I promised him he would never have to pack his toys into boxes because of someone else's choice again. Most nights are the same: homework at the kitchen table, frozen pizza or pasta for dinner, bath time and story time. Lights out by 8:30, unless it's a Friday and I let him stay up a little later. Routines are my religion. They keep our world from spinning off its axis. But that night in March, the rain was coming down steady and cold, the kind of rain that makes the whole sky feel heavy. Noah was upstairs, asleep in his dinosaur pajamas, his nightlight glowing soft under the door. I stood at the sink, hands in warm dishwater, letting my mind drift while I washed 2 plates and one little blue cup with cartoon sharks on it. I was thinking about nothing and everything. Did I pay the power bill? Did Noah seem extra quiet at dinner? Would the old van make it through another winter? It was the usual background noise in my head. I wasn't thinking about love. I had closed that door. My ex-wife, Amanda, had walked out when Noah was 4. One day she was there, angry but present. The next day there was a note on the counter and half the closet was empty. She said she felt trapped. She said she needed to find herself. I never really understood what that meant. All I knew was that Noah cried for her every night for weeks, and I had to learn how to do everything alone. Since then my heart had been locked behind thick walls. People told me I was still young. They told me I should try dating apps. My sister sent me profiles of nice women she found online. I always said the same thing: I don't have time for that, I have Noah, and it was true. My son came first always. If I was lonely, that was my problem. I heard the knock on the door just as I was drying my hands on a dish towel. 3 sharp knocks. Not light, not friendly, a little too fast. I frowned. It was 9:00 p.m., too late for a package, too late for most neighbors. For a second my chest tightened in that old way, remembering the night Amanda left. A note on the counter. A knock from the landlord an hour later asking what was going on. I shook it off and went to the door. When I opened it, I saw her. Sarah Lane, the woman who lived in the small gray house across the street. She stood on my porch like she had forgotten how to breathe. Her blonde hair was wet and stuck to her cheeks. Her coat was unbuttoned and rain had soaked through the shoulders. She held a knitted blanket tight against her chest like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes were the worst part: red, swollen, empty, and wild at the same time. "Sarah," I said, my stomach dropping. "What happened? Are you okay?" "I am sorry," she said. Her voice was so soft I had to lean forward to hear it over the rain. "I know it is late. I could not sit in that house one more minute by myself." "Come inside," I said at once. "There are moments where you do not think, you just move." This was one of them. She stepped past me, dripping on the mat. I closed the door and locked it out of habit. The living room was warm and dim, lit only by the lamp beside the couch and the soft glow from the hallway nightlight. The hum of the heater filled the quiet. "Take this," I said, grabbing a clean towel from the downstairs bathroom. I handed it to her and tried to keep my voice calm. "Sit down. I'll make some tea." "Tea is good," she whispered, like any other words might crack her in half. Sarah had moved in across the street about 1.5 years ago. At first, she was just the new neighbor with the soft voice and the careful smile. She worked from home, some kind of writer or editor. I wasn't sure. She kept to herself. No loud parties, no visitors. We started talking the way most neighbors do: short chats at the mailbox, waving when we passed each other, backing out of driveways. I fixed her porch light once when it wouldn't turn on. She brought over cookies at Christmas for me and Noah. Noah liked her. He said she listened to him like grown-ups rarely did. She always bent down to his level, looked him in the eye, and asked him questions about his dinosaur facts and soccer games like they were the most important topics in the world. But underneath that kindness, I had always sensed something else in her. A tightness, a weight, a sadness that lived in the space under her ribs. I saw it in the way she sometimes stared at the park across the street where kids played. I saw it when she looked at Noah with a mix of warmth and something like longing. There was one picture frame on her mantel that was always turned face down. Noah asked her about it once, and she gently told him it was a picture that made her heart hurt and that some memories were private. I didn't push. I knew about private hurt. In the kitchen, I filled the kettle with water and set it on the stove. My hands moved out of habit while my mind tried to make sense of why Sarah looked like she was falling apart. A breakup, maybe a death in the family, bad news from a doctor. I ran through every normal reason I could think of, and none of them felt big enough for the look I had seen in her eyes. When the water boiled, I made 2 mugs of tea and carried them to the living room. Sarah sat on the edge of the couch, still clutching that blanket like it might float away. Her shoes were off, lined up neatly beside the coffee table. The towel sat unused in her lap. Her hands had not stopped shaking. I set a mug on the table in front of her and sat in the armchair across from her, leaving space, trying not to crowd her. "Thank you," she said. Her voice sounded a little more solid now. She took the mug with both hands and stared into the steam. "You don't have to be sorry for coming here," I said. "We're neighbors. If something's wrong, I'd rather you knock than sit over there alone." Her eyes lifted to mine, and for the first time since she walked in, I saw something like hope under the fear. "We're more than neighbors," she said quietly. "You fixed every broken thing in that house for me. You helped jump my car when the battery died. You watched Noah kick the ball in my yard and cheered for him like you were at a stadium. You've always been kind to me. That's why I'm here." My throat tightened. "Okay, then tell me what's going on. What happened?" She took a long breath. "I lost my family," she said. "My husband, my baby." The words hit me like a punch. I froze, fingers tightening around my mug. "In a car accident," she went on, staring past me like she was watching the scene play out on the wall behind me. "3 years ago, he died on impact. Our son made it 2 days in the hospital. They kept telling me there was hope until there wasn't any left." I had no idea what to say. "Sarah, I am so sorry." The words felt small and useless in my mouth. She swallowed hard, looking away. "I did therapy," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "Support groups, medication. I moved here because I couldn't walk past the room where his crib stood one more time. I thought if I started over somewhere new, it would hurt less." She paused, staring down at the blanket in her lap. "It never really did. It just got quieter, like a radio turned down but still playing all the time." Her fingers stroked the blanket on her lap, blue and white stripes worn at the edges. "This was his," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "My mom made it for him. I tell myself I should put it away, but I can't. It's the only thing I still hold." I swallowed hard, feeling a tightness in my chest I hadn't expected. I thought about the way I felt when Noah was sick with the flu and his fever wouldn't break. How helpless and panicked I had been. The idea of losing him for real was beyond anything I could even let my mind touch. "I miss being a mom," Sarah whispered, her voice steady now, though her tears still slid down her cheeks. "I miss bedtime stories and little socks in the laundry and juice spills on the floor. I miss having a reason to get out of bed that isn't just work or bills or pretending I'm fine." She looked up at me, her eyes wet but steady now. There was nothing left between us, no polite neighbor distance, just raw need and pain. "I know how this is going to sound," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I know it's not normal. I know people don't ask for this, but I've thought about it for months. And tonight, I couldn't hold it in anymore." My heart started to pound. Something in her tone told me we were standing on the edge of a cliff. "Sarah," I said slowly, "what are you asking?" She took a shaking breath. "I want to have another baby," she said. I want to be a mother again, and I don't want a stranger from a clinic or a name on a paper. I want someone I trust, someone good, someone who already knows how to show up for a kid." Her eyes locked on mine. "I want you," she said. "Ryan, I'm asking you to be the father of my child." For a second, I thought I had heard her wrong. The room went very quiet. I could hear the heater turning on, the faint tick of the clock in the kitchen, the rain hitting the windows. Everything felt sharp and far away at the same time. "You want what?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like mine. Sarah didn't look away. Her eyes were wet but steady. Her fingers dug into that blanket like it was the only solid thing in her life. "I want to have a baby," she said again. "And I want you to be the father, not in a relationship way, not in a let's get married way. In a practical way, I would raise the baby. I would handle everything. I need help getting there, and I trust you." My stomach dropped. My brain started throwing out thoughts in every direction. "This is insane. People don't do this. Noah, Sarah, I can't. I can't do that," I said. The words came fast, pushed by panic. "I have a son. I have Noah to think about. I can't just create another kid and pretend that doesn't change anything." Her face crumpled. Hurt flashed across her eyes so quickly I almost missed it. "I'm not asking you to pretend," she said. "I know it would change things. I know it's huge. I've thought about all the ways it could get messy. I've considered clinics, donors, adoption, all of it. They all feel cold. You don't." I shook my head, my hands trembling. I set my mug down before I dropped it. "This isn't about being cold or warm," I said. "This is about my kid. Everything I do is about my kid. Bringing another child into the world, even if I'm not there day to day, that's not something I can treat like a favor for a neighbor." "I didn't mean it like that," she whispered. "I know. But that's how it feels," I said, my voice rising. "Like you're asking me to split my life into pieces and hand one over, and I can't do that without knowing what it does to Noah." Tears spilled over onto her cheeks again. She nodded like she was bracing herself for a hit she knew was coming. "I figured you would say no," she said. "That's why I tried not to ask. I told myself 100 times to keep my mouth shut. I just reached a point where I was alone in that house with this blanket and memories, and I felt like I was going to drown. You were the only person I could think of who would understand why I needed this." She stood up, clutching the blanket to her chest. She was moving fast, like if she slowed down, she would break. "I'm sorry I put you in this position," she said, her voice breaking. "I should go." "Sarah, wait," I said, standing too. But she was already headed for the door, moving quickly, like if she slowed down, the tears would come faster. She paused with her hand on the doorknob, still facing the wood. "Thank you for the tea," she said in a flat voice. "And for listening. I promise I won't bring this up again. You don't have to worry about me bothering you." That last word hit me harder than the rest. Bothering, like asking for help, made her a problem to be avoided. I never said, "You're a bother," but I almost did. I started, but she had already opened the door. Cold air rushed in. Then she was gone, out into the dark in the rain, crossing the street back to her house with her shoulders hunched and her blanket clutched tight. I stood there for a long time with the door half open, the sound of rain loud in my ears. My heart was pounding like I had run a marathon. I had done the right thing. That's what I told myself as I closed the door and locked it. I had to protect Noah. That's what I repeated as I sat back down on the couch, staring at the 2 mugs of tea, one untouched, both growing cold. I had no choice. That was the line I was still using an hour later when I finally forced myself up the stairs to check on my son. Noah was asleep on his stomach, arms sprawled, mouth slightly open. His dark hair stuck to his forehead. His dinosaur nightlight glowed next to his bed, painting strange shadows on the wall. I stood in the doorway and felt something twist deep in my chest. What would my world look like without him in it? Dark, empty, wrong. If some drunk driver had taken him from me, what would I do to get that feeling back? To be a dad again. To have a reason to pack school lunches and read bedtime stories and step on Legos in the dark. Maybe I would knock on a neighbor's door and ask for the impossible too. I shook the thought away like it was dangerous. This is not about her, I whispered to myself. This is about him. I went to bed, but sleep didn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sarah's face at the door. The hope, the shame when I said no, the way she said she would not bother me again. Around 3:00 a.m., I gave up. I went downstairs, poured myself a glass of water, and sat at the kitchen table with my phone in my hand. There was only one person I could call with something this insane. My older sister, Megan. She lived an hour away in Coeur d'Alene with her husband and their 2 kids. She was the one who showed up with groceries after Amanda left. The one who sat on my floor while Noah built towers and listened to me say I was fine until I finally admitted I was. I typed out 3 different messages and deleted them. Can I call you? Are you awake? I need advice and you're going to think I'm crazy. In the end, I did nothing. It was the middle of the night. I would talk to her later. In the daylight, this would probably seem less huge. It did. The next morning, my alarm went off at 6:00 a.m. For about 4 seconds, my life felt normal. Alarm, shower, school, lunches. Then the memory slammed back in. Sarah on my couch. Her voice when she said she wanted a baby. The way she said my name, my stomach clenched. Still, life didn't care about my emotional disaster. No one needed breakfast. I needed to clock in on time. I moved through the morning on autopilot. Toast, eggs, pack a snack. Signed the permission slip crumpled at the bottom of Noah's backpack. Answer his questions about a science project. If he noticed I was quiet, he didn't say anything. He just talked about the field trip to the aquarium next week and asked if jellyfish could see in the dark. After I dropped him off at school, I sat in the van for a full minute with my hands on the steering wheel, staring out at the gray sky. Across town, people were living normal lives, drinking coffee, going to work, not being asked to father their neighbor's child. I worked for a small HVAC company run by a guy named Dale who wore the same ball cap every day and pretended to be gruff, but slipped candy bars into my hand when jobs went long. By 8:30, I was at the shop loading my van with filters and tools. "You look like hell, Cole," Dale said when he saw me. "You sick? Just tired?" I said, "Too many cartoons," he asked. "Noah keeping you up?" "Something like that," I said. He squinted at me like he didn't believe it, but he handed me my work orders anyway. 3 calls, 1 broken furnace, 1 thermostat install, 1 AC unit making a noise. The customer described it as possessed. Normally, I liked the work. Machines made sense. If they were broken, you figured out why and fixed it. There was a clear problem and a clear solution, not like this. At the first house, I replaced a faulty igniter in a furnace and realized halfway through that I had stared at the same screw for almost a full minute without moving. "You okay, man?" the homeowner asked from the doorway. "Yeah," I said quickly. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About not dropping this on your foot," I said, forcing a smile. He laughed and left me alone. By lunch, I knew I couldn't keep this inside my own head anymore. It was like trying to hold back a river with a paper cup. On my break, I sat in the front seat of the van, pulled out my phone, and hit Megan's name before I could talk myself out of it. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, baby brother," she said. "Everything okay?" "No," I said, my voice coming out tight. "I mean, yes, Noah is fine. I'm fine. I need to tell you something and you're going to think I've lost my mind." "Okay," she said slowly. "You're freaking me out a little. Start from the top." So I did. I told her about the knock on the door, the blanket, the accident, the way Sarah said she missed being a mom so much she could hardly breathe. The question, my refusal, her leaving. I expected Megan to interrupt, to tell me Sarah was crazy, to tell me to stay far away from this level of complication. She did. She just listened. When I finally ran out of words, there was a long silence on the line. "Wow," she said at last. "Okay, that's a lot." "I told you," I said, "it's insane." "It's complicated," she corrected. "There's a difference." "Why did you say no?" she asked, her voice soft. "Because of Noah," I said without thinking. "Everything is because of Noah." "I know you believe that," she said. I know you love that kid more than anything, but I want you to really answer the question. Was it only about him, or was some part of it about you being scared? The words hit a place I didn't want touched. Scared of what? I asked. Scared of your life changing, she said. Scared of being tied to someone new. Scared of another woman leaving. Scared of loving another kid. Rain started to tap on the windshield again. I watched it slide in uneven lines. I can't risk Noah's stability, I said, clinging to the one thing that felt solid. Our life finally works. I can't blow it up for something that's not even my dream. I'm not saying you should say yes, Megan said, but I am saying this. You called me. That means you're not done thinking about it. If it was a clear no, you wouldn't be replaying it in your head all morning. I let my head fall back against the seat. So what am I supposed to do? I asked. Talk to her again, she said simply. Not to promise anything, not to agree, just to understand. Ask the questions you didn't ask last night. You can't make a real decision based only on panic. If I talk to her again, I'm going to open a door I don't know how to close, I said. Maybe that's true, she said. But Ryan, some doors are supposed to be opened. The question is not, is it scary? The question is it worth being scared for? Think about that before you decide this is impossible. After we hung up, I sat there in the van with the phone still in my hand. Was this impossible, or was I just terrified of the way my careful life might shift if I even considered it? When my lunch break ended, I went back to work. I fixed another furnace. I climbed another narrow set of stairs. I answered another set of basic questions for a customer, but every time I looked up, my eyes went to the direction of my street in my mind, to the little gray house across from mine. By the time I pulled into my driveway that evening with Noah chattering in the back seat about spelling tests and soccer, my decision was not clear. But one thing was, saying no and never speaking of it again was not going to be enough. At some point, I was going to have to knock on Sarah's door and ask her to tell me everything. I didn't knock on her door that night. I told myself it was because no one needed dinner and homework help and a bath. That was part of it. The bigger part was I was still scared. 2 days went by. In those 2 days, I saw Sarah twice from my front window. Once she was bringing in groceries. Once she was standing on her porch looking toward the park, that blue and white blanket in her arms. She didn't look at my house either time. No one noticed before I said anything. Why haven't we gone to say hi to Miss Sarah? Noah asked at breakfast on the 3rd day, spoon halfway to his mouth. I've been busy, I said. He frowned. Did she do something wrong? No, I said quickly. No, she didn't do anything wrong. Do you not like her anymore? The question made something inside me jolt. I like her, I said a lot. I trailed off. How was I supposed to explain to a 7-year-old that a woman across the street had asked me to help her have a baby, and I didn't know if saying no was the right thing or the cowardly thing? I just have some things to figure out, I finished. Grown-up stuff. Noah nodded like that answered everything. Kids accept grown-up stuff the way adults accept weather. It's there. You can't change it. That afternoon, while he was at school and I was between jobs, I drove past our street on purpose. I didn't park. I didn't get out. I just slowed as I turned the corner and looked. Her curtains were open. She sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open, but she wasn't typing. She was staring at the screen in that way you stare at things when your mind is somewhere else. Megan's words came back. You can't make a real decision based only on panic. After my last call of the day, I sat in the van for a long time with the engine off and the keys in my hand. My heart pounded like I was about to do something illegal. I drove home. I helped Noah with his homework. We ate tacos. We watched one episode of his favorite show. I tucked him in and listened to him talk about how his friend Liam could touch the basketball hoop if he jumped from the top of the stairs. Please do not try that, I said. He grinned. I won't. When his door was closed and the house was quiet, I stood in the hallway for a full minute. Then I went downstairs, grabbed my jacket, and stepped out into the cool night air. Her porch light was on. I crossed the street before I could talk myself out of it and knocked. For a second I thought she might not answer. Then the door opened a crack. When she saw it was me, her eyes widened and the door opened wider. "Ryan," she said. Her voice held caution and something like relief. "Is everything okay? Is Noah okay?" "He's fine," I said. "He's asleep. I was wondering if we could talk." But she looked at me for a long second, then stepped aside. "Come in," she said. Her house was smaller than mine, but neater. Everything had a place. The living room smelled like lemon cleaner and something sweet, maybe vanilla from a candle. The turned-down picture frame sat on the mantel, same as always. She wore leggings and an oversized sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a loose knot. She looked tired, but not wrecked like the night she came over. "I made tea," she said, motioning toward the kitchen. "Out of habit, I didn't know if you would actually come." I followed her to the table. 2 mugs sat there already. She had been waiting. We sat across from each other. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "I'm sorry about the other night," she said first. "I shouldn't have dumped that on you. It wasn't fair. I crossed a line." "No," I said. "You're honest. Being honest is not wrong." I reacted out of fear. That's not the same as making a choice. She blinked like she was trying to understand my words. "So why are you here?" she asked quietly. "Because I have questions," I said. "And because if I'm going to say no to you, I need to know I'm saying no for the right reasons, not because I panicked. And if I'm not going to say no, then I need to know exactly what I'm stepping into." Her hands tightened around her mug. "Okay," she said, "ask me anything." I took a breath. "Why me?" I asked. "You could go to a clinic, you could use a sperm donor, you could adopt. Why knock on your neighbor's door and ask him to do this?" But she looked down at the table for a moment. When she looked up, her eyes were clear. "I tried to make myself do those other options," she said. "I have the information packets, I have the numbers. I went to one of those fertility seminars downtown. They talked about donors like they were products on a shelf. Height, eye color, education, it was all statistics. I walked out halfway through." She shook her head. "I'm not judging anyone who chooses that," she said. "But I can't. When my son Liam was born, I knew everything about his dad. I knew Ethan snored and drank too much coffee and cried during sports movies. I knew he hummed when he cooked and hated mustard. I knew the way he loved. When I looked at our baby, I could see pieces of him. And I could tell Liam stories about who his father was beyond numbers on a form. I want that again." My chest tightened at the name Liam. I had never known it. "And you think I could be that person?" I said quietly. "I think you're already that person," she said. "I've watched you for a year and a half. I've seen how you talk to Noah, how you listen, how you get down on the floor in the yard and let him use you as a dinosaur target. You show up for him every day. You work hard. You are patient. You are gentle. You are steady. Those are the things I want in my child's DNA." Heat crept up my neck. Nobody had ever described me like that. "I'm not perfect," I said. "I never thought you were," she said softly. "But I think you're good, and good is rare. Good is worth asking for." But I looked down at my hands. "And you would raise this child alone?" I asked. "No partner, no shared custody, no asking me for child support." Her jaw tightened. "I make enough money to support a child," she said. "I own this house. I have savings. I've had 3 years to learn how to survive alone. I'm not trying to trap you or take from you. At minimum, I would tell the baby the truth when they were old enough to hear it, that their father was a good man who helped me because he cared. If you wanted to be more involved than that, I would be open. If you didn't, I would respect it, but I would never come after you for money or legal rights you didn't want." "That sounds simple when you say it," I said, "but life's not simple. What if you meet someone later and they have feelings about this? What if the child wants to know me and I want to know them? What if something goes wrong?" She nodded. She had clearly thought about this. "Then we talk," she said. "We get everything in writing with a lawyer. We set up an agreement that protects you and me and the kid. We plan for worst case as much as we can, and the rest we figure out when we get there." "You make it sound like we're signing a contract to start a business," I said. "In a way, we are," she said with a sad little smile. "The business of raising a human. Most people go into it with romance and hope and no plan. Look how often that falls apart. Maybe being deliberate isn't the worst thing. I thought about Amanda, about how we had never talked about what would happen if she wanted a different life. We had just assumed love would carry us, and it hadn't. Another question pressed at me, one I almost didn't ask. How do I know this is not just grief talking? I asked. How do I know you're not trying to fill the space Liam left with another baby because you can't stand the emptiness? Her eyes filled, but she didn't look away. You don't know, she said. Not fully, I don't either. I've asked myself that question every day for a year. I've talked about it in therapy until I was sick of my own voice. I do miss Liam. I always will. There's a hole in my life that will never close, but wanting another child is not about replacing him. It's about letting myself love again, instead of letting grief be the last word. She swallowed. When I picture my future, I don't see myself as just the woman whose family died, she said. I see myself as a mother again, reading bedtimes, packing lunches, worrying about stupid school projects. I want that life more than I want to stay safe from more pain. That is what I know. Silence settled between us, heavy and full. I thought about the way my own life had shrunk after Amanda left. Work, home, Noah, repeat. No friends, no dates, no risks. Had I really built this whole careful world for Noah? Or had I also built it for myself so I never had to be that hurt again? Sarah broke the silence. If your answer is no, I will accept it, she said softly. I will be sad. I will probably cry for a week, but I won't hate you. You have Noah. You have every right to protect your world. I just needed to know, I said. My chest felt tight. I'm not ready to answer yet, I said. I need more time. I need to talk to Noah's aunt. I need to talk to a lawyer. I need to sit with this and think about how it would look in real life, not just in my head. I owe my son that, and I owe you that. She nodded, eyes shiny. That's more than I expected after the other night, she said. Thank you for not just slamming the door on it. I wanted to, I admitted. It would have been easier. But you didn't, she said. No. On my way to the door, I paused and turned back. One more thing, I said. Why did you come to me that night and not someone else? Not a friend, not family. Her hand tightened on the back of a chair. Because everyone else sees me as broken, she said. My parents see me as their sad daughter. My old friends see me as a story they whisper about. You've only ever treated me like a person. You don't look at me with pity. You look at me like I'm still here. That gave me enough courage to knock. I went home with her words in my ears. I took Noah in and watched him sleep, and felt the weight of the choice in front of me like a physical thing. By the end of the week, one thing had become clear. I still didn't know if I was going to say yes. But I knew this. If I said no, it was going to be because I truly believed it was the right thing for my son and for me. Not because I was afraid of what might happen if I was brave. I wish I could say the answer came to me in a flash, like some movie moment where the music swells and everything makes sense. It didn't happen that way. It came slowly in little pieces over the next week. A question from Noah, a comment from Megan, a quiet look from Sarah through a window. On Sunday, I took Noah to my sister's house for dinner. She made pot roast and mashed potatoes. The kids ran through the house yelling while we sat at the table with coffee. So, Megan said, have you talked to her again? Yeah, I said. We talked. She's thought this through more than anyone I've ever met. Lawyers, plans, boundaries, all of it. And you, she asked, have you thought it through? I've tried, I said. Every time I start, I end up back at the same place. I'm scared. I don't want to break our life. But I keep thinking about her sitting in that house alone with that blanket in that empty room in her chest. I keep thinking if I say no, it's because I'm afraid and I'm tired of being afraid. She studied me for a long time. You're a good dad, she said. You always have been. You put Noah first. You'll keep putting him first. Saying yes to this doesn't have to mean saying no to him. It just means your family might end up looking different than you planned. I didn't plan this at all, I said. She smiled. Some of the best things in my life were not on any plan. Later on the drive home, Noah watched the trees go by outside his window. It was dark. The road was quiet. He spoke without looking at me. "Daddy." "Yeah, buddy. Do you think Miss Sarah is lonely?" The question hit me like a surprise punch. "Why do you ask?" "Because she smiles, but sometimes her eyes look sad," he said simply. "Like when I forgot my lunch last month and sat alone in the cafeteria. I smiled when you came, but my stomach still hurt." I gripped the steering wheel. "I think she is lonely," I said. "Sometimes I like when we go see her," he said. "She listens to me. She talks to me like I'm not a baby, and she makes the good cookies with the sprinkles." "That's true," I said. "If she had a kid," he asked, "would that kid be my friend?" Air seemed to stick in my chest. "If things happen that way," I said carefully, "I think the kid would be more than your friend." "What is more than a friend?" he asked. "A brother or a sister?" I said. He thought about that. "I always wanted a brother or sister," he said. "I know we can't just buy one at the store." So I didn't say it, but I did. I didn't answer. I couldn't. That night after Noah fell asleep, I sat in the dark living room with the TV off and the house quiet, replaying everything in my head. Me at 24, holding my son for the first time and promising I would never walk away. Me at 28, watching my wife pack her bags. Me at 31, standing in my doorway while my neighbor asked me for a kind of miracle. Was I going to live my whole life trying to avoid every sharp edge? Or was I going to accept that loving people meant sometimes walking straight into risk and trusting myself to handle the cuts? On Wednesday night, I texted Sarah, "Can you come over tomorrow after I put Noah to bed? I think I know what I want to say." My heart raced while I waited. Her reply came a minute later. "Yes, what time?" 8:30. I barely slept. The next day dragged. Every furnace felt heavier. Every thermostat turned slower. Dale looked at me once and said nothing but patted my shoulder like he knew something big was happening and also knew better than to ask. At home, I tried to be normal. I helped Noah with math. I listened to him talk about recess. I read his bedtime story and kissed his forehead and promised him, like always, that I would be right down the hall. When his door closed, my heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. At 8:30 on the dot, there was a soft knock on my door. When I opened it, Sarah stood there in jeans and a simple sweater, hair down, hands twisting together. She looked terrified. I was pretty sure I did too. "Hi," she said. "Come in," I said. We sat in the living room, the same spots as that first night. She on the couch, me in the chair. The lamp cast a warm pool of light between us. "I'm not going to drag this out," I said, my voice shaking a little. "I'm just going to say it before I lose my nerve." Her fingers stilled. "I'm saying yes," I said. "I'll help you. I want to help you." For a moment her face didn't move, like the words hadn't landed yet. Then her mouth opened, and her hand flew up to cover it. Tears poured down her cheeks so fast she didn't even try to wipe them. "Ryan," she whispered. "I'm scared," I said honestly. "I'm scared of what this means. I'm scared of doing it wrong. I'm scared of how people will judge us. But I'm more scared of being the kind of man who lets fear make all his choices. You asked me for something huge. You trusted me with your last hope. I'm not going to run from that." She shook her head, crying harder now. "You don't owe me this," she said. "I'm not trying to save you," I said softly. "I can't. You already did the hardest part yourself when you chose to keep going after everything you lost. This is not me rescuing you. This is me standing next to you and saying, I believe in the life you see for yourself. I want to be part of giving it to you." She let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "I promise I won't take advantage of this," she said. "I promise I will respect your boundaries and Noah and everything you need. We'll write it all down," I said. "We'll see a lawyer. We'll be smart and careful and clear. We won't rush anything. But the basic answer is yes, I'm in." For the first time since she walked in, she smiled. It was small and shaky, but real. "Thank you," she said. "You have no idea what this means to me." "I think I do," I said, "but you can keep reminding me." We talked for a long time that night about doctors, about timing, about legal agreements, about what involvement might mean. We didn't figure out every detail. We didn't solve every possible problem. We just took the first step together. The next month was full of appointments. We met with a family lawyer who specialized in non-traditional arrangements, as she put it. She asked sharp questions and made us talk through things we hadn't thought of. What happens if you move? What happens if one of you dies? What do you tell schools, doctors, the child themselves? We signed papers that laid out rights and responsibilities. I wouldn't be on the hook for child support. I wouldn't have automatic legal custody, but I would.